Hello there everyone, Eric Padden once again, and on this video we're going to be discussing, is there really a food shortage going on out there? And I think if you've been paying attention at all to even on mainstream media these days, you're starting to hear that some of these riots and the different revolutions that are going on in the Middle East aren't just about being unhappy with their politics, but also about the fact that the average Middle Eastern is having to spend about 80% of what they make simply on survival, basic food, and that even in China we've had a lot of food prices that have quadrupled within the last month. And so what's happening is there's a lot of inflation that's being exported via the Federal Reserve banks, and they have ways of kind of manipulating where all that money that they're creating via these bailouts and the quantitative easing, all that money always has to find somewhere to go. And they always kind of have a plan when they're creating this money. And whether it's the dot-com bubble and they get rich, and when it crashes the average guy goes broke, whether it's the real estate bubble. Now I think we're in the beginning of what's going to be the biggest commodities bubble the world has ever seen. And what they'll do is they'll kind of manipulate and direct this money to certain places first, and what will happen is that money will eventually kind of work its way through the system. It's a very small interconnected world. And even though we're still very fortunate at this time, and basically we're in April of 2011 as this video is being made, we're very fortunate in the US to still have some very low food prices. However, that's not going to continue. It doesn't take but 3-4 months before this money kind of cycles through the system and starts to find the other markets around the world. And because there's so much money out there, it's going to drive up the food prices everywhere. And so I think there are some legitimate food shortages around the world due to lack of storing. Also, you're finding there are some legitimate floods and droughts, and of course the tsunami, and these things don't help the food supply. But I think the bigger issue is going to be the food inflation. And we're seeing inflation already in fuel. We're going to continue to see that as the Middle Eastern crisis continues to spread throughout the Middle East. And you're going to see very shortly $5 gallons of gas. Chances are it's going to get even worse as that situation continues to unravel over there. In some of my other videos I've touched on how that's all part of the master plan of, for lack of a better word, the elites, basically the puppet masters that are the ones pulling all the strings on everything from the world banking systems to most big business nowadays, governments and so on. They're all basically puppets of these elite bankers. And a lot of people are aware that all these dollars being created are creating not only inflation, but also, remember, they're not just dollars. All around the world, these are a lot of debt-based fiat currencies. If you're not familiar with how a debt-based fiat currency works, look at one of my other videos on debt-based currencies and understanding fractional reserve banking. It's very important that you understand that, because that's it's what the root of all these problems. Every debt-based currency in history has crashed, over 3,800 of them on record. Of course, you don't hear about this in modern education or our schools, or certainly not our media, because of the fact that they control all that. They just want a bunch of sheep that pay taxes, pay interest on the debts. If you got to work 2-3 jobs, that's fine. That's what they prefer. And so, bottom line, I think it's the food inflation that's going to be even a bigger problem than the shortages, because I do believe there will be food on shelves that, because of the inflation, people cannot justify purchasing it. And then once they're starving, they then have no choice. And so chances are you will see some food riots, and you will see some unrest, even here in the United States. A lot of people in the know believe that it can happen as early, I should say, as late 2011. Certainly into 2012, all this excess liquidity is going to create some tremendous prices, just like the dot-com shot up, the real estate bubble shot up. You're already seeing the commodities bubble shoot up, and it doesn't take long before that cycles down to the stuff that we buy. And so what you need to be doing is putting away. I used to have maybe 3-4 months always set aside for earthquakes. I live in California. A lot of my family, kind of look at me kind of funny sometimes, and they think I'm a little bit extreme when it comes to survivalist. But I've always had that philosophy. When it comes to the safety and security of my family, I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And that goes for everything from guns and ammunition to protect your family and your food stores, your gold, your silver, to the actual food itself. And so what I wanted to touch on in this video was how the inflation, I think, is going to be even a bigger problem than the shortages, and you need to put it away now. And so what I've got here are some of the things that I think are the best values. If you're storing food, you don't want to store a bunch of junk food that's not going to nourish your body. but you do want to store foods that you actually eat. You know, you don't want to have a bunch of MREs or something that you've never eaten before and then find out that it tastes, you know, horrible, or that it makes you sick, or what have you. So what I've got here are what I feel are the best values. There's a lot of different types of rice out there. This is the type of rice my wife loves, and she prefers this, so we go with this type of rice here. If you want to save a buck or two, you can get the, you know, rice a little bit cheaper, but we're fortunate, it's still very cheap out there right now in the United States. You've got to have some beans. This is another great source of protein. The different pastas, I highly recommend that because it's quick and easy to prepare. There might be some pockets where, you know, we have things where there might not be electricity. Another concern a lot of people are aware of, or that we're going into a solar maximum from late 11 into 2012, where the solar flares from the sun can literally put electricity out. And if this was to happen, you want to have things you can prepare. You know, I happen to have, you know, barbecues with extra propane and little Coleman lanterns and stuff, and we can kind of survive camping style if we had to. You want to have, obviously, the cooking oil, lots of pasta, lots of protein. And, you know, if you can't cook, you're going to need, this is like pecans. Raw almonds are one of the most healthy types of proteins that you're going to find. Not cooked. Cooked better than nothing, but raw almond is certainly the best. These are quick and easy to store. They'll store for a few years with no problem. Quick and easy to eat, healthy. Obviously coffee, if you're a coffee drinker. Even if not, having that can make a good barter. Not a big fan of Spam, but I found you can cut it into small pieces, mix it in with your pasta, even maybe dump a couple cans of, you know, anything from the cream of mushroom soup or what have you, to some broth in there, and that can make you a really good meal that's going to nourish your body, because the best bang for the buck you're going to find is going to be in rice, beans, pastas, and then you ought to have your sauces. You want it to taste good, so make sure you got a lot of, I use the jars because you can use those for water when you're done with them. These are great because you can keep these at room temperature for years. There's various types of soy milks and things out there, and cases and cases of this. You can water it down if you need to for your cereal or what have you. Anything that's got to do with metal, your aluminum foils, your batteries, all that stuff is definitely going to be going up. You've got the Chinese and, you know, the Indians and lots of people nowadays that are, you know, wanting everything that's got to do with any type of metal. I keep a lot of, you know, you got to have this for your cooking. If I'm cooking out on the grill, I've got to have my steak. You might not be able to get this stuff at all, but if you can, it's going to be so expensive. You don't want to have to spend your money if you don't have to. You want to be able to save, you know, your money, and if you're smart, you've already converted most of your paper into silver and gold and food, because most people are aware all these dollars that they're printing are devaluing the dollar faster than ever before. I've also got, you know, things like salt that's used for curing. This is some chicken, you know, tuna fish, just sources of protein that are going to stay for a year or two, maybe 3. If I'm wrong, you can always rotate in new stock and use this stuff because it's stuff that you're eating every day anyway. But I think it's very important that you take the food thing seriously and start stocking up, because when you need it, it's too late. Okay, it's either too expensive or maybe not even available, and you need to start doing it now, because there's already rumors of, you know, Costco's, for example, in California and New York, who are actually tracking purchases, and they're starting to ration people. You can only get so much rice or so much beans or whatever it might be. Sugar, you know, certainly you're going to need lots of that, because if you are in a panic situation, they're going to cut you off, and they're going to consider people that are trying to hoard. Believe it or not, they've manipulated the laws nowadays to where that can be considered a type of terrorism. So you do not want to have to wait until the last minute and get stuck trying to get food when it's either skyrocketing expensive or they're rationing it or what have you. So just go out and on those shopping trips, put a little bit of extra away, and then more importantly than the food, even though, I mean, that's probably one of the most important things in the short term. You want at least 6 months to get through this mess. But if you look at the web bots that are out there that have predicted the crash of the dollar in late 2012, if you look at the leaks coming out of the Bilderberg meetings, the elite, people like Lindsey Williams, who have credibility, who have had past leaks that have been confirmed, are telling you that get out of paper, whether it's your 401k, your IRA, get out of it, get into gold and silver, physical gold and silver. My other videos, you might have seen how they've exposed now the basic hearings at the CTFC, whatever, I forgot I don't have my notes in front of me here, I think it's CFTC commission. Those hearings exposed that basically, like currencies and treasury bonds and T-bills, that the precious metals trade in multiples of 100 times the underlying physical, which basically means through the ETFs, SLV, that JP Morgan has, and GLD that HSBC has, they were flooding the market with millions and millions of phantom, I call it, phantom ounces of gold and silver that simply don't exist in physical form. They've manipulated the laws to where they were able to pull that off. They're now being sued, and a lot of you might be aware of that by now. Bottom line is, as a result, silver is now trying to find its rightful market real quickly. Bottom line, in 1980, you had 10 billion ounces of silver above ground and about 1 billion ounces of gold. And so it was logical, it made sense that gold was more valuable than silver. Now what's happened is, because silver has been so cheap and it's been used industrially more than ever, a lot of people believe the conspiracy of the elites to get rid of silver through keeping it cheap through their manipulation so that it's used up as an industrial metal is all part of their plan, not only to keep the competence of the debt-based fiat currencies up, but even more importantly, to get the silver out of the common man's hand. Because whenever these debt-based currencies crash, which they always do, it's not if, it's when, you're going to find that silver and gold are the only things that allow you to come into the new currency, the new economy, in a position of strength. And so there's people that will be better off with 2, 3, 5, 10 rolls of silver than people that have millions in their 401ks right now. So it's very important that you start converting your paper while it still has some purchasing power. Now, it doesn't have much compared to when the Federal Reserve came along in 1913. We've lost 98% of our purchasing power. Since 1913, you now have about 2% of the purchasing power. It's averaged about 1% a year loss. So if it continues that 98-year trend, that means in 2 more years, okay, that'd make 100 years, you'd lose 100% of your purchasing power. So by late 2012, your dollars are worthless. You're better off putting them in the fireplace to heat up, because wood will be too expensive in comparison. So bottom line, a lot of people think this conspiracy stuff is BS. A lot of other people are pulling their heads out of the sand and looking around now at what's going on in the world. If you wait, it's going to be too late. So you need to make your move now. Get your food stores built up. Get your paper converted over. Okay, I borrowed against my 401k. The money I couldn't get out of the 401k, I went ahead and put in mining stocks. But some of my other videos talk about ways to protect yourself. Bottom line, if you get on my blog, you should be able to click below this if you're looking at it on YouTube, or you can go ahead and just get on isncoinsbusiness.com, and you can check out the various articles and videos that are on there to educate yourself on how to come out of this and protect yourself and your family, come out the other side. The reason I think silver is the best place to put your money right now, I just touched on how in 1980 there were 10 billion ounces of silver and 1 billion ounces of gold. Well, guess what? Today, through using silver industrially and not mining enough to keep up with demand, today we sit at 7 billion ounces of gold on the planet above ground, because it's hoarded away, it's not used up. And we sit at less than 1 billion ounces of silver. And so think about that for a moment. 7 billion ounces of gold, less than 1 billion ounces of silver, generous estimates. And yet the value today as we make this video is closer to 38 to 1. It's still, as we speak today, $39 an ounce silver. It takes about 38 ounces of silver to buy 1 ounce of gold. What's wrong with that picture? So I believe silver is the most incredible opportunity. You still have purchasing power to convert over. I highly encourage you to do that. If you'd like to give me a call, 858-705-2487. Once again, my name is Eric Padden, and I've got a couple different ways you can get in. One of my business opportunities basically is just a wholesale club. You buy your gold, bullion, platinum, palladium at wholesale rates, so you're cutting out the middleman. The other one is more of a, get a coin shipped out on auto ship each month if you want to build a slow, steady collection. That one will build your residual income. That's the ISN Coins opportunity. So both of those are available on my website to learn more about them. Whether you go through me or not, the important thing is to get your paper converted over to silver as soon as possible and start building up your food stores to protect you and your family. I thank you very much for your time. Once again, feel free to give me a call and we can discuss your situation specifically. And you can reach me at 858-705-2487, or feel free to jump on my blog, which is isncoinsbusiness.com. Thank you very much for your time, and have a great day.